Franklin D. Roosevelt's philosophy is to offer the people a radical New Deal.
This is more than a political campaign. It is a call to arms.
Roosevelt and his New Deal policies win him 42 of the 48 states.
It looks, my friends, like a real landslide this time.
The government played the deciding role in the economic shifts of the 1950s. The Great Depression and World War II required a robust and active government, one that Americans were not used to. FDR provided that robust and active government through the New Deal. New Deal programs funneled money into the suburbs. During the Depression, around half of all Americans fell behind or defaulted on mortgages. New housing was not being built, and the construction industry was dying. To solve this problem, FDR signed the National Housing Act into law. It guaranteed that if someone fell behind on mortgage payments, the government would step in and pay the bank. It kept people in their homes and stimulated the building of new homes. The Wagner Act protected the rights of workers to form unions. Those unions could bargain for better wages and conditions, putting more money in workers' pockets and providing more stability for their positions. Workers protected by the Wagner Act were good candidates for mortgages guaranteed by the government. And so were returning World War II veterans. In 1944, FDR signed the GI Bill into law. It provided them with low-interest loans for homes and education. People covered by the GI Bill could not only get good jobs with their college degrees, they could buy good homes with loans guaranteed by the government. Most of these homes would be suburban. The Levitt brothers, William and Alfred, revolutionized suburban home building by injecting it with assembly line techniques. They mass-produced walls and ceilings using lumber from forests they owned, putting them together with nails and concrete they made themselves. Teams of workers could bring all of these materials out to a lot and build a home in 16 minutes, complete with a plumbing system. In 1947, the Levitt brothers built their first town 30 miles outside of New York City near Hempstead, Long Island. In all, they erected 17,000 homes and accommodated 80,000 residents. The town had playgrounds, swimming pools, a shopping center, and land set aside for public schools. It remains the single largest housing development built at once in the United States until this day. People who lived here got a steal. Homes went for around $7,900, which was a little more than double the average American salary at the time, and way cheaper than similar housing in other parts of the country. The Levitts weren't the only mass producers of homes, but they were the most well-known, and their name is attached to hundreds of similar towns across the country today. With Americans conquering the age-old human problem of shelter, they could focus on other things. Once World War II was over, there was a real fear that the Great Depression would return. But it didn't. World War II jump-started America's factories. After the war, all of the old industrial centers of Europe were destroyed. Only American factories stood standing, and they would supply Europe with what they needed to rebuild. America became the engine of the world economy, and the American people would reap the benefits. American factories went from making material for the war to consumer goods for the world. No more bleak Christmases and starving winters like during the Great Depression. In the words of the economist Kenneth Galbraith, America was the affluent society. Stores were stocked with an endless supply of consumer goods: food, clothes, toys, cigarettes, washing machines, and refrigerators. Cars rolled off assembly lines into dealerships where people used the money they earned from their union jobs to buy them. And as time went on, a new invention would redefine American homes and culture: the television. In 1950, only 10% of American homes owned a television. Only 38% of Americans had ever even seen a TV show. By the end of the 1950s, most homes had a television set. News shows like Edward R. Murrow's See It Now and game shows like the $64,000 Pyramid became popular. With so many eyes pasted to TV screens, it was a perfect opportunity for advertising. In some ways, Joseph McCarthy was one of the first to recognize this. He used television to spread his own brand of paranoid anti-communist politics, helping foster a Red Scare throughout the country. Companies quickly learned the power of slickly produced television presentations. They spent an increasing amount of money on television advertising. President Eisenhower himself even had a team of advertising men to help him in his re-election in 1956. To people who lived through the horrors of the Great Depression, the stocked refrigerators and constant advertising were the biggest signs that the Depression was over. The future was bright. So bright that they felt comfortable enough to bring children into the world. The 1950s was the high point of what we would call the baby boom, where birth rates spiked between 1946 and 1964. Men returning home from World War II ready for love certainly jump-started things. However, the major reason was that people felt financially stable enough to make families. The proliferation of babies created an entire industry based around childhood. The federal government poured funding into public schools, especially after the Soviet Union's launching of Sputnik in 1957 caused Americans to think that they were losing the arms race. Books about parenting became popular. Dr. Benjamin Spock caused the stir by sharing his scandalous idea that children should be listened to and not beaten. Baby boomers grew up in a world of toys, two-parent families, and love. They became confident, self-assured adults. The baby boomers of the 50s grew up to be the hippies of the 60s. The older generations tended to view them as spoiled. Since then, it has become the right of every old fart generation to complain about how spoiled the next generation is. However, the affluent society masked deeper inequalities in race and gender that will be covered in the final chapter.